section. These questions ask you to understand meaning that is not directly stated, but is suggested by the speaker. That may sound challenging, but don't worry. They aren't about guessing or reading minds. They're about using careful listening and clear clues. Inference questions ask what the speaker means even if they don't say the exact words. The question might ask what can be inferred, what the speaker implies, what the professor suggests, or what someone will probably do next. The key idea is that the answer is never random. It comes from strong clues in the audio. If you hear those clues clearly, the correct answer will feel like an obvious conclusion based on what was actually said. The TOEFL isn't a test of logic, just language, so you don't need to solve a puzzle here. These questions test whether you can connect the speaker's words with the larger meaning behind them. Often, speakers show their attitudes or intentions through tone or short comments rather than long explanations, and inference questions check whether you notice those signals. You may need to combine a few pieces of information, such as a description, an example, or a reaction, to understand what the speaker is really communicating. Right, so let's take a look at what kinds of inferences you'll be expected to make. There are a few common types of inferences on the test. For one, you might need to understand a speaker's attitude or opinion, even if they never say it directly. For example, they might say, "I don't know, that sounds challenging," and you can infer that they are nervous, even if they didn't say, "I'm nervous," in exact words. Similarly, you may need to identify an unstated reason for something the speaker describes, or recognize a conclusion that is probably true based on the recording. Sometimes the question focuses on a phrase that suggests something indirectly, and you have to explain what that phrase really means in context. Now, we're walking through these just to show the types of relationships. There aren't separate strategies for these, and there may be different types of inferences on your test, but hopefully this gives a general sense of what inference means for the TOEFL. As you listen, to make a good inference, pay close attention to the speaker's tone. Are they frustrated, uncertain, pleased, or something else? Also, notice when the speaker emphasizes something or repeats it, because that can be an important hint. Similarly, contrasting statements can show disagreement or doubt, which often leads to an inference. And finally, and most importantly, use only the information from the listening passage. Inference does not mean adding outside knowledge. It means connecting the clues already given. Let's take a look at some of the common types of wrong answers. A lot like other question types, the wrong answers to inference questions often look tempting because they sound logical, but they just don't match the recording perfectly. Some choices add new information the speaker never mentioned, while others repeat key words but change the meaning slightly. You'll also see answers that are too strong, using words like always, never, or must, even when the speaker only hinted at something. These patterns are helpful to recognize so you don't choose an answer that goes beyond the audio. Now let's listen to an example from the same academic talk we've used in other lessons. Here's the transcript again for reference. Feel free to pause the video and look for times when the professor is suggesting information indirectly. Not just the definitions and examples as said, but what other potential facts that we could assume are true based on what's here. Okay, when you're ready, we'll look at the question that follows. Here's an example of a question we might get from that talk. What can be inferred about how people handle information that conflicts with their worldviews? Each answer choice offers a different possibility, but only one fits the clues in the passage. So, pause the video, and then take a minute to scan the answers and see if you can find the correct one. Alright, now let's go back one more time to the transcript. The question asked about how people handle information that conflicts with their worldviews. The professor talks about that about halfway through the recording, so here's the relevant section. The key sentence says, "People overlook contradicting evidence." The inference here is small, even though the professor doesn't talk much about conflicting evidence. She mostly talked about how people tend to believe supporting evidence. We can take that same idea and apply it to the opposite. They are less likely to believe contradicting evidence. Coming back to our answer choices, Let's look at what makes the wrong answers incorrect. The first is basically the opposite of the truth. The professor said that people overlook conflicting evidence, not that they pay more attention to it. The second and third choices add ideas that just weren't in the recording, whether people understand the conflicting evidence and how much context they have isn't discussed. Similarly, the professor doesn't say anything about how well we remember anything, just what we pay attention to and what we believe is true. The final answer choice is our correct one. The professor said that people more likely believe evidence that matches their existing ideas. That means they're less likely to believe evidence that does the opposite, that contradicts their existing views. To summarize, inference questions ask you to understand meaning that the speaker suggests but does not say directly. Good inferences are based on clear clues such as tone, examples, emphasis, and contrast. Wrong answers often add new ideas or exaggerate what the speaker said. Strategy can help you stay focused, but the real key is careful listening. If you pay attention to how the speaker builds their ideas, you'll be able to recognize the small jumps in meaning that inference questions rely on. Just be sure to keep your inferences small. Don't bring your own expectations into the answers, just what you actually heard.